Okay, everybody. See a couple more people. We had quite a few more people log in. So welcome. I don't know about y'all, but it is cold where I am at. I hope you all are doing well. Can everyone still hear me okay? Awesome. Okay. So if you are joining in on Zoom, welcome. Use the chat instead of the Q&A. I think I have the Q&A disabled, but use the chat because that shows me questions and answers, participation in real life time, and I don't have to scroll. If you are joining in from YouTube or Facebook, welcome as well. Use the comment section to join in on the fun. Okay, so any questions before we get started? Okay. All right, so I see a couple new names. So I'm going to just kind of do a brief little intro just so you get the vibe of how everything works for tonight with me. So tonight we are going to discuss the reading. This is an all-in-one, and this is actually part 1 of 3. So if you are just joining in, what a great time to join in. So you get to start from the beginning with us. This is the first section of the reading portion, and this is covering key ideas and details. Oh, excuse me. There we go. How I typically, yes. So everybody's mic is muted. That's just how the software is set up so that participants, their mics are muted. I always encourage you to participate using the chat. Yep. Yep. Always ask questions. So, that being said, that was a great segue into what I was going to say. So use the chat. If you're on Facebook and you or YouTube, use the comment section, join in, ask questions. I always strongly encourage questions because if you don't know something, just ask. What I typically will do is I will go through all of the notes for the evening. We will do a handout with the one tonight, with our material tonight. And then at the end of the evening, once I know that we've made all of our notes, everything's, saved with what we've covered for the evening, because sometimes I do go in and make notes for the individual groups that I'm working with for live webinars, because everybody learns differently. So at the end of the night, when I know that we have all the notes saved up, I will post those into the comment section of either Zoom, Facebook, YouTube. So you can access the link and then you can download the notes that we've reviewed or we've covered tonight. I'll also post any handouts and answer keys that we work on tonight as well. If you are interested in upcoming live webinars, I've got a QR code, and this will all be included in the notes that I provide you, so don't feel like you have to rush to click on anything now. But if you would like live webinars, so we're just starting over with the reading, just doing a first cycle with English coming up. So check that out. You can sign up for upcoming ones. We have all of them posted through December. If you have not tried out our TEAS question bank, make sure to check that out. It is great. There are over 1,500 practice questions in there between all 4 subjects. The on-demand videos, we just revamped those. So these have really target specific topics. If you're looking for something in particular, you can really narrow down. And then check us out on our socials. So got Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and then tutoring. If you are interested in tutoring, there is a QR code for that as well. If you have any questions or if you have any issues with accessing any of the links from tonight, after the fact, then you are certainly welcome to email us at prenursing@archerreview.com. And he's really good about emailing you back very quickly. He has a quick turnaround time. All right, so I think I covered everything. So use the chat, notes, and handouts will be posted at the end of the night in the comments or in the chat. All the QR codes, anything anyone can think of? Any other questions? All right. So tonight we have a lot to go through. So we are going to power through And we are going to cover a great deal of material. However, that being said, this is an all-in-one. So you will see that we are actually going to cover 6 subtopics to this first section of the reading. This is not a deep dive into each of these individual topics. This is more of an overview to give you an idea of what to expect from this overall section. So if you, as we're working tonight, if you see that there's a particular area where maybe you want just a little bit extra practice, make sure to check out the on-demand videos because we have a lot of good material that dives into the nitty-gritty and really gives you more of an in-depth look if that's what you're looking for and needing. So make sure to check that out. Okay. Because this, honestly, if we were to go into the full detail of every single little subtopic, we would need multiple nights. So, all right. So tonight, like I said, we're going to look at 1.1. So that is summarizing a multi-paragraph work. 1.2, form inferences and draw conclusions about the meaning and purpose of a text. 1.3 is about exhibiting knowledge of written directions. So we'll look at how to read written directions and really what to look for with those questions. And then 1.4, determine particular information within a text. And then 1.5, everybody's favorite, using charts, graphs, other visuals to analyze, interpret, and apply information. And then 1.6, evaluate a sequence of events. So as you can see, a lot to cover tonight. All right, so if there aren't any questions, we're going to just jump right on in. So this first section is summarizing a multi-paragraph work. So things to keep in mind, make sure that when you're looking at this section, you understand the terminology. So the parts of a multi-paragraph passage, the ones that you want to pay attention to and the terminology you need to know is topic. What is a topic? Main idea, key points, and supporting details. And especially with these last two, those are the two that I see students getting tripped up on because they get confused as to what those mean. So again, terminology is very important in this section. All right, so this is a practice, okay? When you are looking at a topic, before we jump into it, when you are looking for a topic, what you are doing is you are reading your material and you are asking yourself, what is the idea? Not the main idea, okay? But what is one, maybe 2 words that summarizes what the entire passage is about? So we're looking for a specific topic. It's going to be something broad. Okay, so it's not too specific. I don't mean it like that. But we're going to be looking for a broad concept. Think of it like that. So what is a broad concept? 1, maybe 2 words that summarizes what you're reading about. Okay, so what I'm going to do is tonight's going to be heavy on the reading. So if you have a concern about reading under time constriction, tonight's going to be a good practice for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put about 1.5 minutes on my timer, and I'm going to have you read through this passage. And I want you to use the comment section, use the chat section, and tell me, what do you think? What is 1, maybe 2 words that summarizes what this entire passage is about? Okay? All right. Ready, steady, and go. All right. I see a couple people still typing, so go ahead and get your final answer in. Sorry, I'm trying to stay hydrated. All right, so if you picked climate change, just those two words, climate change, then you pick the correct topic. So see, just something so short and sweet and simple as climate change, just two little words. It's not going to be a complete sentence. So just keep in mind with topic, we are looking for a broad concept. We are not looking for a complete sentence. We're not looking for a statement. We're just looking for that one, maybe two words as to what the paragraph is about. So climate change would be our topic. Okay, so keep that in mind. Topics are going to be very broad because what you're trying to essentially say is that every single sentence within this passage somehow relates back to climate change. They all fall under. Yep, that's what you thought, but it was too simple. I'm gonna share what you said. And that's true. And that's what will trip students up a lot of times is because they see, maybe one of the answer options is just a couple words and they're like, no, it can't be that easy. Yep. For a topic, you're not looking for that complete sentence, just that brief one, maybe two words. Okay. Now, when you're trying to determine the main idea, this is when you are looking for that central message or concept. So it's still a concept. It's going to build off of that topic. So, for example, with the previous one, climate change, you're going to build on that in some way. And this is going to be the primary point. What is the message that the author is trying to get across to the reader? So, this one, we're developing it. It's not one or two words, it's going to be a complete sentence. It's going to be a complete idea. It's going to express what the author's intention is with this passage. This is so important because as for reading in general, it's going to help you with reading comprehension, but obviously on the TEAS, you're just looking at trying to answer the question. I understand that. So a couple tips when trying to determine what the main idea of a passage is. Make sure that you are looking for something that is broad instead of too specific. We want to, again, just like with that topic, you want to find something that is encompassing the entire passage. So a topic is going to be 1 to 2 words. The main idea is going to take that topic and it's going to establish it into a complete idea and make it a complete sentence. Make sure to look for certain keywords. Those can be helpful when trying to find a main idea. And then most of the time, it's going to be, if it's a multi-paragraph passage, it's going to be introduced in the introduction paragraph. However, be careful because we know with, testing, it's not always going to be that cut and dry. They're never going to always make it that simple for you that it's always going to be in one particular place. So just keep in mind that it can be anywhere throughout your passage or your multi-paragraph passages. Um, Again, I just strongly recommend thinking of it as, okay, would this one sentence kind of umbrella and cover everything else that is being talked about in this passage? Right? So now what I've got is I'm going to put 2 minutes on the timer because I know we're easing into it. I'm going to put 2 minutes on my timer and you're going to read through this paragraph. And then I want you to tell me what is the main idea of the passage. So which of these four is going to encompass everything that this paragraph is talking about. Okay? All right. So remember, use the chat, use the comment section, and tell me what your answer is. All right, ready, set, and go. All right, so let's take a look. So now let me ask you this using the chat. Okay. What would you say is the topic of this passage? The topic. If you had to type something out and tell me what the topic of the passage is, what would you say it would be? What's one, maybe two words? Pollution. Good. Yes, everyone. All right. So let's take a look. So the main idea of this passage is actually going to be C. Efforts to reduce pollution are necessary for protecting public health. If we look at this, we see efforts to reduce pollution, such as promoting. This gives us a breakdown of the specifics, but it's just that little subsection. They are crucial for protecting public health and improving overall air quality. So C would be the correct answer for this one. Pollution in urban areas is a serious problem. So with that one, I saw some people, nobody picked D. Okay. Everybody was against the D. Letter D. So pollution in urban areas is a serious problem. Poor air quality affects public health. Would you say with those two that every single sentence in that passage could fall under one of those two? So we see it's pollution in urban areas poses a significant health risk, the combination of vehicles. So that kind of leads into it. Um, and that's where we get into talking about poor air quality. That's in B. But then with C, efforts to reduce are necessary. So we see that these two sentences right here are actually the supporting details to back that sentence up and explain how we get to this sentence right here. Everybody kind of see that? And again, if you don't get this the first time, that is perfectly fine because, and you don't have to put this in the chat, this might be your first time looking at it from this perspective. So you're learning, you're absorbing this information. So if you missed one, don't beat yourself up, okay? We're going to do lots of practice throughout the night, but the first time that you look at something, no one should ever expect you to be an expert at it, okay? All right, so any questions on that one? All right, so let's take a look with determining key points. So now this is one that I want you to pay really close attention to, okay? Key points. And keep this terminology in mind, especially when we start talking about supporting details next, okay? So the key points, they elaborate on the main idea of each individual paragraph. So that's the key to the key points. They are the elaboration of that main idea within each of those individual paragraphs. So a tip is to look for ideas that elaborate on the main idea of the entire passage. So this is looking at those multi-paragraph passages, so keep that in mind. What we've used so far as our examples have only been singular paragraphs, but that's because there's only so much I can fit on one page without having to constantly scroll. And with people that read at different speeds, it makes it kind of difficult to do that. So when we do our handout in just a minute, you'll see that you can apply this to multi-paragraph passages. But when you have a multi-paragraph passage, you are still going to have only one main idea, what we just talked about, within that entire multi-paragraphs, okay? However, your body paragraphs, those mini paragraphs that are in between the introduction and the conclusion, they are going to house individual ideas that support that main idea. And those ideas are going to be considered the key points. They are the key points that back up the main idea. So, for example, if I have the main idea sentence, there are numerous benefits of regular exercise for overall health. Well, a couple different paragraphs that I might have in this multi-paragraph passage might focus on one being how it improves cardiovascular health. Another paragraph might focus on how it boosts mood. And then a third might focus on how it manages weight. So each of those paragraphs are focusing on a different individualized idea or topic, if you will. So it's kind of like looking for that topic. But those individual ideas are going to be considered the key points. They are the key points to the main idea. Okay. Everybody with me so far? Yep. Okay. All right. Now with supporting details, on the other hand, this is taking it just one step farther. So supporting details, they're going to be sentences that provide elaboration on that paragraph or paragraph's topic. So for example, excuse me, I can't talk tonight. For example, if I keep that same main idea, there are numerous benefits of regular exercise for overall health. All right, we said that one key point would be how it improves cardiovascular health. Well, key points are the topics that support the main idea. Supporting details are going to be very specific examples of those key points. So breaking it down just one step further. So key point being improves cardiovascular health. Well, a supporting detail would be that it strengthens the heart muscle. How does it improve cardiovascular health? Because it strengthens the heart muscle. How does it improve the cardiovascular health? Because it enhances blood circulation. How does it improve cardiovascular health? Because it improves oxygen delivery to cells. So see how it's all tying back and giving you that example of whatever that key point is. So supporting details are the very kind of like the very fine print, okay? And they are going to provide you those specific, very specific examples. Any questions between key ideas and supporting details? All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at a handout that I have for you. Give me just 1 second. Hold on 1 second. Whoops, sorry. I had myself mute my mic muted and completely forgotten. I was just sitting here talking away to myself. Okay, so in the chat, if you're on Zoom, in the chat, you see a handout link. If you're on YouTube or Facebook, you see a handout link. Click on those, and then it should open you up to a new PDF, which is going to look like this. Does everybody see that? Nope. Okay. All right. So when you open that up, you should see this, and and I've got it divided up by the subsections for tonight. So we're going to take a look at 1.1, summarizing a multi-paragraph work. It's everything we just talked about. So we've actually covered all the concepts that are in 1.1, finding the topic, finding the main idea, looking for the key points, and then narrowing down to the supporting details. So now we're going to apply those. So what I'm going to do is I've got this long multi-paragraph passage. I told you it was coming. And I've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 questions on that passage. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes. I'm going to do 5.5 just because it is a lengthy paragraph or lengthy passage. So I'm going to give you 5.5 minutes. Ask questions if you need to, but post your answers because it really does help me kind of gauge where you're at. And then we will come back and check, okay? Does anybody have any questions before we get started? Now, I'm not going to scroll on my screen, but so you open up your PDF on your end, and then we'll come back together after 5.5 minutes and we'll check these. Okay, just give you enough time to read through and answer those questions. All right, well, if no one has any questions, go ahead. I'm starting my timer now. All right, how are we doing? Need a couple more minutes? Everybody good? Don't be afraid to let me know. All right, I see a couple people still typing answers, so I'll put another minute up. All right, looks like everybody's finishing up now. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a look and we are going to, well, I think I'm going to. All right. Oops, I'm sorry, that was so very loud. Here we go. Okay, so you should see the answer key now. All right, so the first one is number one. What is the main idea of the passage? That was B. And what I've done for you here, I'm gonna give you this answer key as well. But what I've done here is if you're going back and practicing and reviewing this material later, I've even included a breakdown of why each one is correct or incorrect. But essentially with B, this is focusing on the importance of sleep overall for overall health and well-being. So that's the main idea for that passage. Number two, what is the key point made in the second paragraph of the passage? So that's where you have to go back and count 1, 2, and we see it's playing a supportive role in cognitive function. So now in the passage, it referenced to it as cognitive function, but here, this is where they try to trick you up. So cognitive ability. So what I did there was I just changed the word right here to something different, but it means the same thing essentially. So be careful of that because sometimes they'll change the wording up just slightly so it looks a little different and it might throw you off. But number two was A, about the impaired cognitive abilities and or cognitive functions. Number three, what is a supporting detail provided in the second passage? So we want to look for a specific supporting point to the cognitive abilities. So this is where it gets a little tricky too, because it says right here, this was actually the topic. So that was the key point, but this leads us into, yeah, right there. So that gives us the supporting detail all in the same sentence. So be careful when you have sentences that are fused together like that. And then number 4, what is the topic of the passage? So it's talking about the importance of sleep for overall health and well-being. So that would be C. Looks like everybody got that one right. Let's go back and look. A. So it looks like some of y'all got that right. And it looks like some of you might have strayed with that third one. But I bet you, was it because you were thinking, oh, well, that's supposed to be the key point as well? Is that maybe what threw you off if you missed that one? Yep, that's what I thought. So again, it's probably just because you weren't used to looking at it from that perspective. So just keep that in mind that sometimes they may be fused together in the same sentence. So it was that second part of that sentence that you were really just looking for. All right, so any questions? Oh, so I'll post the answers into the chat just like how you access the handout just now. I'll post it there and I'll post the slides at the end of the night once we've made all of our notes. And so I'll post everything just like I did with that last one. Main idea and key idea, what's the difference? Oh, good question. So main idea, especially when you're looking at multi-paragraph passages, that's where it really kind of gets into it. So with a main idea is going to be one sentence that summarizes the whole thing. All the paragraphs could fall under this one sentence. Okay. Think of it kind of like an umbrella. So you know how when you have an umbrella, it covers you and it covers everybody that's underneath of it? That's the main idea. So the main idea is that top of the umbrella that covers everybody else. So the main idea is one sentence that summarizes everything that's talked about in the multi-paragraphs. The key idea, though, that is going to be one specific point that breaks down the main idea. So we were talking about on the this one. Let me go back up here. So we were talking about numerous benefits of regular exercise for overall health. So that's our main idea. The whole multi-paragraph passage, the whole essay is going to talk about the benefits of regular exercise. Okay. Now, your body paragraphs that are going to back up that point are going to each focus on a key point. And that's going to be an example of that main idea. Okay. So it's kind of like if you see here how the main idea is the broadest topic, then you have the key point. It falls right underneath of it. And then we get a little bit smaller with the supporting details. Every time you move down in the outline structure, you're getting more and more specific. When you move up, you're becoming more broad. All right. Good question. Any other questions? Oh, you're welcome. Topic sentence is you put less idea. So topic sentence is going to be kind of like a key idea. Yes, if that's what you were trying to say. Yep. Yep. Good. Any other questions? All right. So we're going to move on to 1.2. I told you we got a lot to cover tonight and only a short amount of time to do it. So 1.2, this is talking about forming inferences and drawing conclusions about the meaning and the purpose of a text. So what is an inference? I'm so very glad you asked me. Thank you for doing so. Inferences are ideas that are suggested, not stated. So this is going to be an idea that is going to be presented within a passage, but you're not going to see those actual words on paper. It's kind of like reading between the lines. That's a great way to think of it. Inferences in reading materials. So these are logical conclusions that are made between information that is directly on the page, so what's written on the page, versus ideas that are not directly stated by the author. So you're not going to always see it word for word. It's going to be something that you read between the lines. And in order to do so, what you'll do is you will use context clues that are provided within the text. And then you're going to apply your own experience, your logic, and your common sense to what you're reading and your basic understanding of it. And that's how you're going to make those inferences. Okay. Now, something that has helped many, many of my students is to ask yourself, whatever that statement is, ask yourself that as if it were a yes or no question. I put it in here, added at the end of the statement. However, the past few months, I've actually switched and started adding it to the beginning of the statement. It just makes it a little bit more in your face, like, that's what we're asking. So, what does that mean, though? Adding it a yes or no question to the end or the beginning of the statement. Oops, I didn't mean to click there. So, what you want to do is if you have multiple choice answers, which realistically, you're probably going to encounter those. So what I would always tell my students, or what I do tell my students, is to look at those answer options, A, B, C, D, and read the sentence. But before you do, ask yourself, yes or no, based off what you read and your basic knowledge of that topic, would you answer yes? And if you do, then it's an inference that you can make. If you answer no, then it's not an inference you can make. And I would say that I've had a lot of feedback from students that have said that that has really been helpful for them. Now, a couple other tips and tricks. Never lose sight of the information that is available. Base your inferences on facts as much as possible. You don't want to be biased, okay? But you want to base your inferences on facts as much as possible. Then use your background knowledge, your experience, your general common sense to help you make inferences. A lot of times I'll have students that'll say, oh, well, I get so psyched out and I get frazzled because I'm reading these passages and I'm not an expert on this material. I don't really know if this is correct information or not. And then they sit there. No, don't ask if the answer is included in the text, but ask yourself it as if based off what you read, would you be able to answer that question, yes or no? But like I said, a lot of students, they get really over anxious because they think that they have to be an expert on every single passage, topic, whatever that is going to be covered on the reading portion. Now, on the science and the math, good luck, may the odds be ever in your favor. No, I'm just kidding. But you do have to, be a little bit of an expert on those because you got to be able to identify certain bones or certain ligaments, muscles, whatever. But with the reading portion, don't get yourself overhyped up and essentially just overwork yourself into thinking that you can't answer something because you're not an expert on psychological warfare. That's not what we're trying to do with these. You're just using the information that's being given to you. And also, I'll be honest with you, sometimes, and I've had students verify this, they say that, their lack of knowledge of a wide back or deep background knowledge of that, whatever it is they're reading, actually helps you in the long run. So don't let it get you psyched out. All right. So what I want you to do, and this is where we're going to practice for the person that just asked me. What I want you to do is I want you to read this passage. And then I want you to pick out of those 5 answer options, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're going to pick 2 of those and you can just type the number of the sentence. But I want you to pick 2 of those that are inferences that you could draw based off the information that's given in this passage. So what you would do is you would read the passage, and if you're following my yes or no method, you would say, yes or no, the plumber was recommended by a friend. Based off what you read there, it doesn't have to be something that's word for word in the passage, but based off what you read, would you assume, they say don't assume, but would you assume yes, or would you assume no? And if you answer yes, then that's going to be an inference. If you answer no, you just keep on trucking and move to the next one. Okay. All right. So I'm going to put 3 minutes on the timer and then we're going to come back and check. Ready, set, and go. All right, finish typing up your answers. All right, so if you answered 3 and 5, then you are correct. Now, in the chat section, just tell me, did you happen to try the yes or no question trick? The yes or no trick? Yes. Did it help? Well, if you say maybe, then that's a no. It's like I tell my little one, it's either a yes or it's a no. There's no in between sometimes. And this is the time. Yep. So if you say maybe, then there's that doubt. When in doubt, and don't doubt yourself. Okay. So try that. And on multiple choice, when you're trying to work through your ABCD and you get overwhelmed, try that, because if you can answer yes, you've got an inference. You've just made an inference. If you answer no, then you got to keep looking. Okay. All right. So back to our worksheet we go. So we're going to flip back over to our worksheet. And this time, see, that was very short, sweet, and simple. We're just looking for what is not actually being said. So for this one, I've got another multi-paragraph passage. Everybody see that? And I've got 1, 2, 3, I think it was 4. Yeah, I did 4. I tried to be uniform in that. So I want you to go through, and now I'm not gonna lie, like I made this one pretty difficult. So if you do well on this one, you are doing well. If you get a little stumped, don't be upset with yourself, because like I said, I do realize that I made this one more difficult because I didn't want to, I wanted to make sure you understood what was going on. So take a few minutes. Let's see, there's a passage. So 4 questions. Let's do 5 minutes. I know it took us a little bit longer last time, but let's see if we can get it done in 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and check, okay? All right, ready, steady, go. All right, take a few more seconds and finish typing in your answers. All right, let's go through and check them. Okay, so for the second section, 1.2, oops, I still see some people typing, but all right, so for number 1, you should have put B. Looks like a lot of people did very well. Nope, not all C's, but number 1 was B. Number 2 is C. And then number 3 is C. And then number 4 was C. So just number 1 was the oddball out. So number 1 was B, 2, 3, and 4 were all C's. Good. I'm seeing a lot of good. Yeah. Any questions on any of those? You guys are doing amazing. And like I said, this one is actually a trickier one. I've had some students tell me that this one was really hard. All right. Everybody looking good? Feeling good? All right. So let's look at 1.3. So exhibit knowledge of written directions. So following written directions. For this section, what you need to be able to do is there's quite a few things. People think, oh, I'm just reading directions. I'm answering questions on the directions. It's not quite that simple. So you need to be able to identify words or phrases that signify order. So they're going to want for you to be able to identify transition words that show that order process. And then also be able to look and see, do you happen to find any contradictions between steps? So things that just don't quite make sense. And then be able to identify priorities within those directions. So which ones are the most important steps? Which ones are the most significant? And then identify relationships among procedure steps. So what that means, kind of like just spoiler alert, what that means is that are there certain steps that align well with each other and they really correlate? Like you can't do one without the other. Um, and then that could also be ones that contrast severely. And then last, be able to determine logical conclusions. So this is where it's going to kind of build on the previous section we talked about based on the information provided. So based off the information that's provided, what assumption can be made? So again, like I said with the previous section and this section, very much so, if you're not an expert on that subject matter, this actually could work in your favor. So the first thing is being able to use signal words and being able to identify signal words. So these are going to be what we call transition words. Signal words are also known as transition words or sometimes cue words, but mainly you're going to hear in the English portion, we talk about them as transition words. But these are words or phrases that indicate some sort of relationship between ideas within a piece of writing. So there's a couple different types of transition words or signal words that exist, and it's all based on what kind of transition, what kind of relationship you're trying to illustrate between the ideas. What they're going to do is they're going to help guide the reader or readers or listeners, whatever, throughout the text, making content more coherent and easier to follow. So it really provides a little bit of flow to your writing. It makes it so that you're not just short, choppy, here's what it is, here's what it is, here's what it is. It gives you that flow from moving from one also next into the next ideas. Okay. Now, signal words, like I said, there's different types of signal words or different types of transition words, and they can serve different purposes. So these might show sequence, so something that comes in a specific order, but they might also illustrate cause and effect. So something that's the cause of it, and here are the effects, or vice versa. It can be used to show comparison between two things. They can be used to show contrast between two things. Addition, now addition does not mean like 1 + 1 = 2. It's really just saying like you're adding on new ideas. And then to illustrate conclusion, that's where we're wrapping it up and we're trying to pull all of our thoughts together. And I just broke that down. Sorry, kind of spoiler alert there too. Now, set of directions. So look at list items, use signal words to establish the pattern of organization. So for example, you might list things as, list 1, 2, 3. So this is benefits of regular exercise. Example 1, example 2, example 3. All right. So now what I want you to do is I want you to practice, and I want you to put these numbers, use the numbers as the identifiers. But I want you to tell me, what order do you think these sentences should go in? Okay. All right. I'm going to put 2.5 minutes on the timer, and then we're going to come back and check. Ready, set, go. All right. Take another couple seconds and put in your answers. All right. Let's take a look. So we should have gotten 3, 4, 1, 2. Looks like everybody did very well with that. I mean, y'all are just like amazing tonight. I mean, you're on fire. Okay, so you did very well. 3, 4, 1, 2. And what you're trying to do here, if you didn't notice, is you're actually going back to that very first section that we talked about, where we talked about topic, main idea, supporting key points and supporting details. That's actually what you're looking at here. So number 3. Oops. Hold on. I gotta go back to my original because I had rearranged them. This is actually our main idea. Carpooling can be a rewarding experience. Okay. So then we see, for one thing, that's listing the first idea that's supporting that topic. I mean, that main idea. Carpooling allows you to share in the cost of gas. Also shows movement from one into this next one. And then finally shows that we're wrapping it up, and that's how we're going to end on that last note. Okay? Any questions on that one? All right, so we are ready for part 3 practice. I told you we are rolling tonight. You guys are doing so great. So for this one, a little bit longer reading. You'll see that's all one reading section. Oh, you're welcome. All right. Now, what I want you to do is we're going to look at a couple different types of questions over here as well. So these are a little different than what we just looked at, but they're expanding on what we've just talked about. So keep in mind, everything tonight really builds on from the previous section. So think about topic, think about main idea, think about those key points and supporting details, okay? Especially when you're trying to answer these questions about the written direction. Okay, so we're going to go back to our handout, the first 1.3. Even though they're numbered over here, I know that's thrown some people off in the past, but that's actually the reading passage itself for the instructions. Then you get to number 1 down here. That's when you start the questions. So there are only 3 questions for this section just because it is so long. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 3.5 minutes. Let's see what we can do in 3.5 minutes. And then we will come back and check. Okay. All right. Ready, set, and go. All right, let's take a look. All right, so number one was bookcase assembly. Yep, it's just that simple. But a lot of times, like I said, students will over overthink it and they'll think it's way more complex than what it is. So number one is B. Number two is also B. And three is C. All right, any questions on those? Yes, I certainly can. Number three. So, what logical step is missing from the instructions? So, painting the bookcases, organizing the bookcase and items on the shelves, testing the stability of the assembled bookcase, reading the assembly manual. So, if we go back up here and look, we'd see preparation. So, we're laying out everything, we're making sure we've got all the necessary components and pieces, identifying the parts. So, once you've laid everything out, you've identified everything, even the panels, screws. You referred to the assembly manual. So that one actually takes care of number three, reading the assembly manual. Okay. And then assembling. So we're going ahead and go and get started working on it, attaching the shelves. You secured the backing panel, stabilizing. So use provided wall anchor hardware to secure the bookcase to the wall. But if we look down here, you mount it to stabilize it, right? But locate the designated mounting holes, drill the holes, final touches. So we talk about tightening, wiping down the surfaces, and then organizing. But between steps 6 and 7, we stabilized it, but did we check to make sure it was secure? No. So out of the answer options, painting it, organizing it, which we talked about. So that one actually wasn't even missing. Testing and reading the assembly manual. This one was discussed. This one was discussed, but discussed. Yes, sorry. It sounded like I said disgust. I was like, what am I saying there? Sorry. Um, but with that, this is the logical one that's truly missing because that's an important safety feature. Does that make sense? Okay, good. All right. Make sure I was explaining that. All right. So, everybody good? Feeling good? From what I'm seeing, you guys are on a good roll. All right. So 1.4, determining particular information within a text. What does that mean? Well, that's just a fancy way of saying being able to find something specific that's located within the text. So, couple key tips and tricks because I have a lot of students that always ask me, well, I'm not a fast reader. How am I supposed to get through these long passages when I'm being timed? Well, first and foremost, it's not up here on this page, but first and foremost, practice, practice, practice. I know that sounds so cheesy and corny, but I'm telling you, the more you practice setting a timer and reading something and then going back the next day, reading a different passage. You don't want to read the same passage over and over again because you start to memorize it, but reading a different passage that's, about of equal length and general boringness of topic, if you will. I try to pick boring topics because if it's something I'm truly engaged in, like, you know, I could used to could put a Harry Potter book. Like I remember when I was little, they always came out during the summer and I could knock out a Harry Potter book, even those longer ones, like those last couple ones. It still only took me maybe 2 days to read that thing. I mean, I can get through about 800 pages if I'm invested on, what we're doing with Voldemort, he who shall not be named. I hope that doesn't offend anybody if you're like completely anti Harry Potter. But I could read through those very fast because I was invested in them. When I'm practicing trying to, strengthen my reading, I do not pick something I'm interested in. I'm gonna pick the most boring, complicated, probably something related to psychology because I really don't even want to be in somebody else's mind. But pick something like that and you want to practice timing yourself, but don't read the same thing over and over again because then you just start to memorize it. But anyways, that's my main tip. Now, some more key tips. Skim the text. Everybody always says, well, do I have to read the whole thing? Yeah, I'm going to say yes. I always am going to say yes first. But sometimes it's nice to skim the text. So people do this differently. Some people like to skim over the questions before they read their passages, so they kind of have everything in the back of their mind. Some people like to skim the passage, read the questions, and then go back to look for everything. This is again where you're going to have to practice and you have to figure out what works best for you as an individual because you're all very different. And that is not a problem at all because, the world would be a boring place if everybody was the same. But everybody is different. Everybody has learning styles that are different. So you just have to identify what works best for you as an individual. Identifying keywords. So sometimes they're going to have keywords or phrases that like names, dates, numbers, things that stand out. So make sure to look for those. Read carefully. So if you are skimming, be careful, but you want to really try to read the text carefully and pay close attention to sentences or paragraphs that are around those keywords, especially if they put something in bold, if they put something in italics, or, heaven forbid they underline something. Use context clues. This is a big thing. So they're not always going to state something right out and you're going to see it on paper. Sometimes you are going to, just like what we did with inferences, you're going to have to use context clues that help you get that deeper understanding of certain terms or concepts. Refer to headings and subheadings. Let me tell you this. If on the test, they take the time out to label a header, whatever, you need to make sure to pay attention to it because they're just not willy-nilly in it for any reason. There's always a specific reason why they're doing something or why something looks a certain way. So when you start to see things outside the norm, that's what you're gonna be keeping in mind. Utilize text features. So like I said, if something's in bold or italics, do not shy away from that. They are doing that for a reason. Like same thing with bullet points or numbered list. This is typically going to be some kind of important information. It's kind of like ding ding. It's like a little buzzer going off saying this is going to be important for later on down the road. Take notes. So I know you're timed on the exam, but if you have a scrap piece of paper, if you need to, take notes. And then review once you found the information, take a moment to review it. Just like with the inferences, take a minute to ask yourself the yes or the no questions. Sometimes, even though you feel rushed for time, it doesn't hurt to take that step back and review it. And we're at our practice. See, I told you we have a lot to cover, but we fly through it. So we're going to go back to our little handy dandy worksheet and we're going to scroll down to 1.4. So this is determining particular information within a text. So I'm going to have you read the passage. Did I have the typo on this one again? Hold on. Oh, I don't think there's a typo on that one. But anyways, so read through these questions and let's see, there are 1, 2, 3. So there's 4 questions and 2 passages with this one. So I'm going to set 4.5 minutes on the timer and then we'll come back and check. Okay? Ready, steady, go. All right, I think everybody's finished typing, so we're going to take a look and switch over to our answer key. So number 1, this one, I think this is where I had the typo on the answer key. So according to the passage, moderate intensity exercise is recommended. Okay, so we look up here and we see 150 minutes of moderate. So I'm so sorry. This one's actually supposed to be D 150. I knew there was a typo somewhere. I had just saw. Okay, so 150 minutes of moderate intensity. 75 minutes is the vigorous intensity. So D, number 1 is D 150 minutes. Number 1 for the next one, what can be inferred about Sarah's feelings towards the lake and her fishing experience? So this would be C. Number 2 would be B. I don't know why I didn't highlight and bold that one. But number 2 for that section would be B. And then number 3 would be C. Any questions on those? Take a second and look over them. Number 3. So what inference can be made about the timing of the heron's appearance? Well, we don't see in the passage, if we go back up here, we don't see where it's showing up at the same time every day because, she's sitting there and she's showing this great amount of patience waiting on this bird that hasn't shown up yet. So that kind of rules out letter A. Letter B, the heron only appears when there are no other people around. Well, it doesn't reference about other people. Okay. It appears when it senses the presence of fish in the water. Well, based off this last passage or last paragraph, a sudden splash shattered the stillness and a magnificent blue heron swooped down from the sky. So something splashed in the water before the bird swooped down. So we can only infer that it was possibly the presence of a fish. And then D, the heron appears randomly and unpredictably. Well, yes, kind of, but that's not really what they're getting at about its appearance. Okay. Any other questions? You're welcome. All right, 1.5. We're almost finishing up. So this section is going to talk about using charts and graphs and other visuals. And again, we're just interpreting, we're drawing those inferences, making those conclusions. So finding information in a visual. Make sure you understand what type of graphic it is. So are you looking at a bar chart, a histogram, a Venn diagram? What are you specifically looking at? Then you need to be able to identify key elements. And then you need to be able to analyze the data presented. So you'll have to be able to look at it and think logically. And then interpret the data. So you have to, kind of, do exactly what it says. You're interpreting what the data is saying. And then last but not least, what we've been talking about tonight, you're going to draw conclusions. Now, you do need to be able to decipher visual representations. So what that means is you need to be able to look at an image and you need to be able to understand the purpose of that visual representation. So what's the point of whatever this visual is that's been created? Pay close. Are you listening? Turn your ears on. All right. So pay close attention to the scale. I cannot tell you, like years and years ago when I was first starting out in the TEAS world and I was doing TEAS prep, my students used to get tripped up all the time. I mean, all the time because they would forget to look at the scale. They would say like 2 blocks equals 5 miles, but they were seeing 2 blocks and they thought, oh, it's only 2 miles. But really, had they looked at it, they would have seen that it was much different in the measurement. Look for patterns and trends. So are we starting to see a pattern? Are starting to see a trend with what's being illustrated? Make sure, again, you check the labels. Sometimes I've seen where they kind of, not to step on the math terminology, but where they switch and invert the X and the Y axis. So that's very important to pay attention to as well. And then compare and contrast different elements. So if you have a visual, and especially one that's in color, make sure that you're looking at what the color is. Why, think about why did they possibly pick these colors? The size, the shading. I've seen that on bar graphs, for example, where they might have one bar that's shaded in with diagonal lines and another one that has polka dots. And guess what? They mean something different. So that's so important to pay attention to what you think might be a minor detail, but could actually be a trick question. And then ask yourself, what information are you trying to pull out? So what am I supposed to be looking at this image, essentially? What am I supposed to be looking at this image and pulling away from it? What am I taking away to put in my brain? And then also ask yourself, what do you need to know from the visual? So if they're asking you a multiple choice question, you need to know something. What does it need to be? So it's kind of like reflecting on the question there instead of the actual visual component. Make sure that you can recognize misleading information. So check the source. If they provide a source, check that source. What kind of source is it? If you pull up your test and they got a Wikipedia up there, honey, you need to run and scream because that is not a reliable source. I'm here to tell you all day. But if they go above and beyond to the point where they are recognizing a source, there's going to be a reason. Like I said, they're not just going to throw out stuff like that for no reason. Check the data. Again, I can't say it enough. Check the scale. Check for something called cherry picking. So this is when they only include certain data points from certain maybe fields, areas, whatever. Check for bias. Is something illustrating bias within, the material that's being provided? And then check for content presented. So is there an accompanying passage? So cherry picking here means that you're only picking like certain points to include. So it's kind of like you only pick the good information to share. A little bit more about cherry picking. So this is where when it says you're cherry picking data, what that means is you're being selective in choosing your data, that it's only going to support a particular viewpoint. Okay. Again, third time's the charm. Scaling issues, be very mindful of that. Be careful of misleading labels. I have seen, it's been a couple years, so don't quote me, but I have seen in years past where they just invert and they flip those X and Y axis. If it's manipulating visual elements, make sure if there's any difference in pattern, any difference in coloring, there's going to be a reason why. All right, so determining important information. So you need to be able to identify the main argument. So this is not for maybe like a visual, like a chart. This is more of if we're looking at analytical writing. Determine the scope. So figure out if the author is focusing on a specific part of a topic or giving a broad overview. What's trying to be accomplished here? Look for supporting evidence. So you're not really going to go search for information that's supporting when you're taking your exam, but you want to look and see, did they provide a list of sources that they used? That might be a good jumping off point. Again, evaluate the relevance. So is it truly relevant to what you're talking about in this day and time? Definitely always look at time when things are being made. All right, sorry, I got distracted by a question. Let's see. Consider the source, think about if it's trustworthy. We talked about that. Analyze connections. So how are things related to each other? Sorry, I lost my mouse. There we go. Supplemental information. So again, we need to look at our main argument. We're going back to that main idea, trying to find that. Assess current evidence. So look for different gaps or weaknesses. consider the audience. So if it states like this is written for a freshman high school class, think about that. Search for additional credible evidence from sources like academic journals. Look and just see in what they're presenting to you, because a lot of times, like I said in this section, you might not necessarily always have an image. They might give you a written passage where they're describing, per se, a hypothetical situation. Incorporate evidence. So what kind of citations? Um, and that's really it when looking at the supplemental information. This section, I would say, I've got a couple different practices for you here because I'm going to show you what I mean. A lot of times the visuals, not the only thing you're going to see in this section. And this is an example of one of those, okay? So I've got a practice question. So what I want you to do is I'm going to read this to you, and it's a little different than what we've been doing, but I'm going to read this one to you because I want to show you what I'm talking about. In an essay arguing for the benefits of a plant-based diet, the author may need to gather supplemental evidence for the following. So see, with all the notes, I'm going to go back for just a second. With these notes right here, what I'm saying is that you're not going to go Google something during the middle of your exam. You have to be able to apply it as if it were a hypothetical situation. If you were walking through the steps and going to go about them, how would that play out? So take a second, look at this. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds. And I want you to tell me in the answer in the chat section, comment section, A, B, C, or D. In an essay, so if I give you an essay arguing for the benefits of a plant-based diet, the author may need to gather supplemental, so more information for the following. Would you say it is A, the environmental impact on animal agriculture, B, the nutritional benefits for consuming animal products, C, the cost effectiveness of plant-based diets compared to omnivorous diets, or D, the culture and historical significance of meat consumption? All right, I got two responses. Anybody else? Oh, quite a few people said. All right, well, let's check our answers. This one's actually going to be a two-answer option. So if they're arguing for the benefits of a plant-based diet, the author may need to gather supplemental evidence for the impact on animal agriculture, because that could be a benefit depending on what it is. The impact of animal agriculture, maybe it's a negative, so that could be a benefit for plant-based. And then C, the cost effectiveness of plant-based diets compared to omnivorous diets. So that might be a benefit. If it's cost effective to have a plant-based versus an animal-based, then that would be a benefit. Okay. So see what we're talking about with applying those? It's really like having those hypothetical situations. Any questions on that? All right, so we're going to go back to our worksheets. 1.5. I got some visuals. I know my color choices were not like wild and enthusiastic, but I was going for a pattern. No, if select all, somebody said if select all is not there, do I give two answers? So I should have been more clear there. I'm so sorry. So yes, they're typically going to always say select all that apply. Will there be many multiple choice? I've started seeing more and more of them, so don't be surprised. But like the other person just asked, would it be labeled? Typically, it's going to be labeled in parentheses, select all that apply. So I apologize. I should have included that there. I didn't even think about that. But typically, they kind of give you that heads up in the question itself. And if you check out our Q bank for the reading section in the English, you'll see how that kind of looks. All right, so I've got this image. I've got 3, 4, 5 questions on that one image. So take a few minutes. There's 5 questions. So I'm gonna give you 5 minutes, and then no, let's do 4.5 minutes, and then we'll come back and check. Okay? Ready, set, go. All right, think everybody had enough time, so let's go through and check them. All right. Next time I'm gonna try to make this rainbow colors. Make it a little bit brighter. So for number 1, you should have put D. Number 2 was C. 3 was A. 4 is C. And 5 is D. Okay, so take a second. Let me know if you need any of those repeated. 2 and 3. All right, let me just go back up. Number 2. Which aspect of the branding process involves establishing strategies for effective communication of the brand's message? So we're looking for establishing strategies for effective communication. So we scroll back up and we see that right there in that section. You see that? Oops. That's where they talk about it. And that's brand communication. So for number 2, it will be C. And then number 3, what is the primary focus of brand identity? So we scroll back up and we find brand identity. Identity is number 2. Create a consistent visual and messaging identity. So then we scroll down. We see that right there. Any other questions? Yeah. All right. So R6, evaluate a sequence of events. So yeah, kind of. Brand identity, main idea, and key points. Yes, that's right. Yes. So R6 is very similar to R3. So this one, I'm gonna make this fast just because I know that you guys have got places to be. But with you want to make sure you read the passage thoroughly. Identify key events. So there's going to be certain things that, take precedent over others that are more important and stand out. Analyze the sequence. So, you want to look at things, how do they flow logically? Okay, what makes the most sense? Consider relationships. So how do they contribute to the overall narrative? Sorry, I had 2 questions pop up at the same time. Oops, lost it. Assess transitions. This is where you're going to focus on those transition words we talked about in R.3. And then evaluate the resolutions. If applicable, analyze the sequence of events, how they lead to resolution or conclusion. Okay. All right, so we talked about transitions, but let's take a little bit closer look really quickly. So transition words are phrases that show relationships between ideas. So they are going to link those ideas from one to the next, showing that movement that I'm moving from one idea to the next one. So for example, if I have this 2 sentences, ebooks cost less than paper books, they are more convenient. But I add in a transition word right there. Ebooks cost less than paper books. Also, they are more convenient. So this implies that we're listing 2 different reasons. Okay. And it just makes it flow a lot smoother. You have fewer short, choppy sentences. And we're at our practice. See, I told you I wasn't going to hold you up so long. All right, where'd my worksheet go? All right, 1.6. So you got a paragraph, okay? You're going to answer those 3 questions, and then we got another paragraph, 4 questions on that one, okay? All right, ready? Oh, wait, hold on. Hold on 1 second. I'm trying to get. So somebody asked me, what is sequence? A sequence in chronological order, what's the difference? So sequence refers to items that are being ordered. Chronological, those are going to be based more on time order. So sequence is, a list of items. So think about it like I need milk, bread, and eggs. Chronological is I woke up, I ate breakfast, I brushed my teeth. So you couldn't have brushed your teeth before you woke up unless you're like a habitual sleepwalker, toothbrusher, then you had to get up out of bed before you did the other things. So chronological is looking at that time order. All right, so we're at 1.6. This one, there's 2 passages and there are 7 questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 7.5 minutes on the timer, and then we're going to come back and check. Does that sound good? Or do you guys feel like you're having too much excessive time left over? Do you think you need a shorter amount of time? Or do you feel good with the timing so far? Feel good? Okay, well then I'll do that. I'll set it at 6.5 minutes and then we'll come back and check. Okay? Ready, set, and go. All right, ready? Okay. And then we just switch. There we go. Oh, I see a couple people still typing. Let me scroll down. Sorry. Don't get whiplash. So number 1 is D next. Number 2 is C next. That's a trick question to throw you off. Number 3 is B after. 4 is D next. Oh, wait, that was it. All right, so any questions on those? Number 4, why not C? So after which transition word suggests movements from the pupa stage to the adult? So that's where we got to go back up. Pupa. Did I say that right? Pupa, pupa, whatever. Mhm, mhm. First, eventually, after next. All right. All right, so there's the pupa and then the adult. So it lays after. So that's where it is. Next, they feed voraciously, growing in size and shedding their skin multiple times as they molt. And then we see that they go into being the adults. No, it's just like, see how they're right here, next and after. That's all it is. They're just asking you to identify based off the sentence location. Yep. Any other questions? Any other questions? All right, so that's actually the end of everything for tonight. So we've got through everything. We've done both our chronological order. Yes, but remember now, and everybody remember this, with transition words, you can use some words for one type of transition and the same word as another type of transition. It's all based on the context in which it's being used. So be careful of that. All right, so if you guys want to take this little feedback survey, I'm going to pause my screen. Does it make it dark? Oh, it does. Okay, never mind. But what I'm going to do is I am going to post, where'd my page go? I'm going to post the handouts for you guys and the notes. Okay. So give me just 1 second and then we will get this up and going. Okay. So if you're on Zoom, check your chat section. That's the slides. That's all the notes for tonight. Same thing for you, Facebook and YouTube. Check your comment section and then answer key. Now here's the answer key for each of you. That way, if you want to practice and you want to go back and review, you also have the step-by-step instructions on why things are correct or not correct. All right. And then there's our QR codes. Oops, for everything. There we go. All right. Well, it has been such a pleasure working with you guys tonight. I hope you guys had somewhat had some fun. You guys did an amazing job. Let me just say that. So definitely check out our Q bank because like I said, practice, 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 practice makes perfect. I'm gonna stick around for just another minute or two. Does anybody have any questions? Anything I can help you with? If not, I will be back on Wednesday night. I have an English webinar, so check that out. It's free, and you can access that on the QR code. You're so welcome. Well, I hope to see you guys back on Wednesday night. Good night. You guys have a great night. I look forward to seeing you Wednesday. All right. Bye, you guys.